I like to refer to as emotional constipation. Like a lot of guys are emotionally constipated. They'll be holding on to emotions and shame for 20, 30, 40 years. And then it still echoes and shows up in their relationship, shows up in their behavior and their posturing and their emotional temperament. But it's all these emotions are straight up natural biological processes that evolution created for us that have a particular sequence they have to go through. So,
And we might just end up doom scrolling. We might end up watching porn. There's a whole heap of other distractions or avoidance that comes in.
most often guys tend to step into work when a bomb is about to go off, even though the clock's been ticking for years now. What is that ticking sound? And then finally one day they open a door and they see like a bomb's about to go off, has 5 seconds left. You're like, oh shit, I gotta learn how to defuse it right now. And it's like, you got 5 seconds to defuse the shit. But it's usually in the case of like wife is threatening divorce, wife is, is infidelity, cheating, just not happy, sex is drying up, whatever it may be. Only, whoa, problems came out of nowhere. For her to me, it was coming to me, it was like, she's like, I can't give you what you need. You deserve better. It's not me. It's not you. It's me. It's like every cliche thing you can think of in a relationship ending, the exact same behavior pattern. Oh, I keep attracting the same type of person over and over and over again, digging into attachment theory, avoidant behavior, anxious behavior, people pleasing, nice guy syndrome, all that stuff, and realizing like, oh my God, I have a pattern. I've had opportunities of relationships with healthy women from healthy families, and I was the one that ran away, freaked out. And then I find the broken women, and I'm just like, we're going to get along great.
Most men in midlife don't realize this, but we're carrying emotional patterns we never chose, repeating relationship cycles we never understood, and avoiding discomfort in a way that slowly breaks us down. I've lived this myself, bottling things up, shutting down, telling myself I'm fine, while everything inside of me tightens up. And I know a lot of you have felt the same quiet pressure building over the years. Today's guest, Michael Reed, has a way of explaining this that cuts straight to the bone. He talks about emotional constipation, the idea that men don't lack emotion, we just never learn how to process it. He explains how some men keep choosing the wrong type of partner, falling into the same relationship patterns, and wondering why things keep ending the same way. He also breaks down the real reason why a lot of men run from discomfort, shut down during conflict, and hide in work, training, or disconnect instead of facing what actually hurts. This conversation is raw, scientific, confronting, and honestly, it's one of the clearest explanations I've ever heard about what happens inside the modern man. If you've ever felt stuck, disconnected, or unsure why you keep reacting the way you do, this episode might hit harder than you expect. Let's dive in. I'd love you to tell a little bit about, what you're doing right now. Who are you? What's the work?
Michael Reed, I am of the adaptive men coaching. My goal basically is to start working with guys to help educate them on understanding the issues around relationship issues, people pleasing behavior, nice guys, pornography addiction, a lot of like the typical things you see a lot of men struggling with today. From a more science-based and evolutionary-based perspective, as well as giving them, tools and tricks and tips as to how to start working through them, finding better fulfillment, better self-worth, emotional regulation, better relationships, all this fun stuff. Trying to dig down to the root of it and then building back up from there.
Awesome, mate. There's a lot to unpack there. Before we do, we were just chatting offline about your role before that. You're working in massage, and there's a lot probably similar between the massage and what you're stepping into now. So can you talk to us maybe about how this idea of, helping men with health coaching came to you?
I've done a couple different angles. I've done massage for close to 10 years now, and majority of my clients are females. And what was really funny was, so my own relationship, my last relationship about 2 years ago, ended, but it ended in a very similar way that I've seen a lot of my other relationships end. And it was almost like deja vu. It was creepy. It's just like, things are going great, things are going great, things are going great. Suddenly, whoa, problems came out of nowhere. It seems like they came out of nowhere. And for her to me, it's coming to me, it was like, she's like, I can't give you what you need. You deserve better. It's not me. It's not you. It's me. It's like every cliche thing you can think of in a relationship ending. I'm just like, where like this, what the hell? This is like the 4th time this has happened in my life. The exact same behavior pattern. And then you think like, well, is the women just crazy? And then I look into it and realize like, oh, I keep attracting the same type of person over and over and over again. And then started digging into attachment theory, avoidant behavior, anxious behavior, people pleasing, nice guy syndrome, all that stuff, and realizing like, oh my God, I have a pattern. Like I literally keep finding the same moment over and over again because I have some kind of subconscious programming that is looking for a specific type of woman in an environment. I literally look back and say, I've had opportunities of relationships with healthy women from healthy families, and I was the one that ran away, freaked out. And then I find the broken women, and I'm just like, we're going to get along great. Nothing bad's going to happen. This is going to be awesome. And it's tough to sit down and realize, like, oh, it's all coming from you, ultimately. Like, you keep finding broken women because you keep trying to fix them because you're trying to get some sense of satisfaction to repeat a story you've been doing. And this is all coming from my own childhood. I was my mother's emotional caretaker, and then it just ended up like repeating it into adulthood. Dug into all of it. And then with the massage therapy stuff, what was funny is after a while, I started telling a lot of my clients who were mostly female, it's mostly women like to get massages just to relax and whatnot. They'd come in, they'd be complaining about this and that, their husband, their kids, their job, whatever it may be. And I'd be telling them, like, yeah, I'm working on this coaching thing. I'm trying to like work with guys. And like, oh, can you tell me more about that? And I'm like, well, I'm working with guys who, maybe they struggle with, emotional self-awareness. They struggle with self-worth. They have a lot of shame. They're addicted to pornography. They don't know what to do, but they don't know who to talk to. And traditional therapy doesn't work. And without fail, like 90% of the time, the women would just look at me and be like, are you talking about my husband right now? Like completely different women who had never met each other. And they're like, it's the exact same. And after a while, you have to realize like, this is a pattern. This is like a human pattern. It's not anything wrong the guy did. It's that something their society, behavior, their childhood, some things they didn't ask for kind of created some behavior pattern in them that they're not aware of. It's repeating itself in their adult relationship today. And they don't have the proper tools or space to actually unpack it, understand it better, and start chipping away at changing it in a way that's not going to be judged or shamed along the way. And traditional therapy tends to fall short because they usually don't have the right understanding of how men process emotions as well as how men go about like addressing things. Traditional therapy tends to cater more to female behaviors and female psychological dynamics because it tend to be like, you just need to talk. Like, oh, yeah, the women can love talking. Any guy who's married knows a woman who just like, well, they love to talk. Guys tend to be better about doing more than anything. And there is value in talking too, but there's a different angle and approach that goes to working with men and does with women. So I think the coaching angle is getting more popular, especially with guys looking to try and change his behavior. So I decided to step into the arena myself after doing my own work.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious though, like you talk about you seeing the patterns and recognizing the patterns and then maybe realizing that it was you and there's work that needs to be done, like, the women you're attracting or the women that you're wanting to date and stuff like that. Was there a point in time like where that awareness just the penny dropped? Or what made you sort of sit back and think, actually, maybe it's me I need to do work on here?
It was a big turning point, I think, was a book I read. It was called The Body Keeps the Score. It's all about trauma. It's by a guy named Bessel van der Kolk, who's a Dutch trauma scientist. He's like one of the top in the world. And it really, I forget what brought me to read the book, but it really explained a lot of my mother's behavior growing up. My mother passed away several years ago, but I believe she had what we refer to as complex PTSD, which is like traditional PTSD for post-traumatic stress disorder is basically like something really big happened. You're a war veteran and you saw someone explode right in front of you, or you were driving a car and you got ejected from the windshield. So like one big incident happened relatively within a short period of time, and it kind of was too much for you to handle, and it's causing these recurring patterns to then trigger when you're around these situations again. So you got like war vets, like, they'll have PTSD from a grenade going off, but then they'll be out and about with loud music and like loud sounds. It'll kind of like sort of trigger a similar response in your system. Complex PTSD is more like repetitive small things over a long period of time. And my mother had a number of symptoms around it. When I started reading the book, and I was just like, holy shit, this is literally her. Like, this is like, I never got an answer as to what it was. This is exactly her. And then that book led to other books, And then like No More Mr. Nice Guy. Have you read that book before?
Yeah.
Behavior. Yeah. Dr. Glover's work. Just like, this is literally my lived experience right now. Holy shit. And it was comforting in a way to be like, okay, it's not just me. This is actually like a fundamental bug or flaw of human psychology that has been created on the population level, because it's got to be the population level, or else the books wouldn't have sold as well as they did. There wouldn't be this many men coming forward going like, you're literally living my exact same story, even though you live halfway around the world. We've had the exact same lives. And so it really comforted me quite a bit to be like, oh, well, if there's a pattern to this is it's not just a unique situation. It's not like you have some weird tropical disease no one's ever heard of. That means there's probably a solution to it. And then start working through figuring out like, okay, when does your pattern show up? How does it show up? What are your triggers? What is the thing that you do? How do you like what does emotions like look like for you? And then starting to work through bit by bit. And it was just like book after book and after podcast after course I took. It was just like, oh, that was me, that was me, that was me, that's me, that's me. And you just see it everywhere. And then it just starts to compound this feeling of like, okay, this is fixable. This is actually addressable once I've learned where it's coming from. But the big trap being that understanding is not action. Like you actually have to put in like, start doing things to start breaking these patterns and changing them. But understanding it was tremendously helpful for me. That was like the big aha moment was like sitting down with those books and being like, I could literally map my past relationships onto exactly what these people are saying right now. Like I've done the exact same things over and over and over again. This is crazy.
Yeah. Do you believe, or with your experience of working with guys around relationship, do you believe that there's always been something in the past? So you're talking about maybe the relationship you had with your mum that set you up to be that sort of man who's having maybe complicated relationships when you're older. Is there something that's always coming from the past that's going to put us in this position, or what have you found?
Combination past and society and culture. It's kind of all three. The past thing, the way I like to think of it is human beings are amazing. You could like you're listening to me talk with like an American way of style, and I'm listening to talk as Australian way of style because you grew up in those environments. If we swap places, I'd be speaking with an Australian accent, you'd be speaking American as fuck right now. You were not born with an Australian accent. You like developed it by being in proximity to people speaking in a particular way, as I with me in America. So like in a nutshell, the hardware of a human being when you're born is like your personality. You just got a personality built into there somewhere. But the software is like the culture, your society, the people you are around with, the behaviors, the things you had to learn in order to fit in and survive. It's kind of like the code that you got that put in. It's almost like a AI. It's almost like ChatGPT or something like that. These AI systems work by taking a crap ton of information and just dumping into the system, and then it starts piecing together combinations and structures in there. So human beings are kind of the same way. Like as you're going through childhood, you're picking up behaviors and patterns of what works and what doesn't work and what's well received, what's not well received from your dad, from your mom, from your siblings, from your extended family, your friends, society around you. And then at some point later on in life, when you hit puberty, when you hit adulthood, you're only going to run off of what you know until you start running and bumping into walls, wondering why something's not working. Which is exactly what you see like with things like nice guy syndrome. In my case in particular, my mother was dealing with a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression for a long time. It was a combination, most likely dietary as well as childhood stuff. But it kind of became my job without even asking for it. I'm realizing like I need to make sure, mom, you're emotionally calm or else I can't feel calm. And we kind of did a role reversal where like I was her emotional caretaker. I was the one that tried to keep her calm instead of her trying to keep me calm. And then when it came to relationships later on in life, you just keep finding women who just can't keep their emotions in check. And you're like, oh, I have so much experience with this. I know exactly what to do. But then you try to get in a relationship with it and you just realize you can't fix them the same way you couldn't fix your mother or your father, whatever it may be. And then realizing that pattern of like if you were the one keeping the peace in the household with your mom, you're going to inadvertently do the same thing with your future wife or girlfriend, or whoever it may be, until you start practicing fighting the urge to do so and just working through it when it comes up, when it presents itself, because it's so familiar. It's grounded into your nervous system from a super young age, like how you're supposed to behave in certain circumstances. Any guy that's ever held that with like an emotionally volatile mother, you'd be surprised how often you'll look at past relationships and you're like, oh my God, all the women I dated were emotionally volatile too. And women with their fathers, it's like the same exact thing. It's like I keep dating emotionally like absent men because my dad never expressed emotion either. I keep finding it again and again. If you put me in proximity to like a healthier person, I'm almost not going to know what to do with myself. It's going to feel weird. But that is like the practice. That is the experience of going through that.
Yeah, yeah. I want to dig into that a little bit more, but before we do, I'm just curious about, like you were saying that, you're in these relationships, you thought everything was going well, and then it's this big sort of surprise, your partner saying it's not you, it's her, and the relationship's coming to an end. What might men be seeing that they're not paying attention to here that could be derailing their relationship or have them on that trajectory, do you
The
find?
hard part is that when you see it, your mind will alter the explanation to keep the peace. Like if I look back at my relationships, I could tell you the signs were everywhere, but at the time I couldn't see them. Or if I saw them, I just swept them under the rug and acted like they weren't there. And that could be like the hardest part of just acknowledging like you saw it and you chose not to see it. And it's not entirely because you were just decided like I'm just gonna put my hands up. It depends on the person, about the relationship, and maybe she's being like in my case, she was being a little bit more emotionally distant. She wasn't like she used to love holding hands. She started like simple little things like we'd walk somewhere and hold hands, and her hand would just be like loose. It just started one day after like 8 months. It's like 7, 8 months. I noticed it immediately. Like she used to be very like she loved just holding me and touching me and hugging me, and wherever if we sat down together, she was leaning into me, and all of a sudden she's just leaning away, and she's instead of holding my hand, she's kind of loosening up a little bit, and you know maybe like if we had sex, like she'd be like super cuddly afterwards. All of a sudden she just runs away or afterwards has to take a shower. And it's like little things are like, this is not what you did a few months ago. What happened? What's going on? But then you try to, in my case, I didn't try addressing as much as I should have. And then one day it just kind of like unexpectedly came like exploded. And a lot of it in this case for her stuff, it was just childhood stuff. It was like sense of self-worth. Like you've, you've probably heard this before. I'm sure guys can relate to this. It's like, you meet the woman who's like, I've never had somebody treat you as well as you have before. And then like a year later, worst breakup you ever had in your life. And you're like, what the fuck? Like I thought you were happy with how good I was treating you. But behind those words are, I've literally never been in the presence of a man like you before. And it's new to me and it's weird and it's going to take time to get used to. Versus the woman who's like, maybe she grew up with a healthy relationship to her father and her mother and her parents were good. And they emotionally grounded and they had conflicts, but they resolved in a healthy way. And then she comes to you and she's emotionally stable and well-rounded and she knows what she wants. And you're like, what the fuck's going on? This is so weird. Never met someone like you before. And inevitably, like in my case, like I said, I ran away from a relationship like that in the past. It freaked me out. And now I realize the freak out was me saying like, oh, I'm actually with a stable person who knows what they want. And I don't really know what I want. And it's scaring me.
Mm. That's interesting, isn't it? Like, there's obviously a lot to juggle there between the two couples themselves. I suppose, self-confidence and self-belief that we've got in ourselves, but also the interactions of that relationship and how they all sort of mesh together. Like I said to you before, before we jumped on the podcast, I think 50% of the men I work with within Midlife Mavericks are having trouble with their relationship and they're not sure how they can fix it. And they're feeling maybe disconnected, like two ships in the night. They're passing each other. The intimacy has slowed down. And they're just like, they're on autopilot. The relationship's working, but it's not where they want the relationship and they don't know what they need to do to change things. And I think they fall into the trap again, like what you're talking about. It's the nice guy syndrome where they're trying to fix and support and do all the right things, but maybe not speaking up for what they want. How does that sound to you? And is that the sort of men you are working with? And if so, like, what's the advice you would give? Where would we start?
Step number one is to call out what you see in a nice way. And I might be talking to a therapist, talking to a coach, talking to a friend. A lot of times it's just like, it sounds like what these guys are doing. They're basically coming to you saying, like, I don't know what to do. Something's different. Something's changed. And it might be a matter of also having a sit down and conversation with your partner, your spouse, and being like, having an honest conversation to say, like, I think we've lost connection. We haven't things we used to do. And they might be like, oh, well, that's just how things, I've just been busy lately. Like, yeah, that's okay. But like, if I'm being honest with myself, I just like, I missed that, or I'd like this, like, that's whatever things you want. And then sitting down and having that conversation with the partner saying like, we've moved to this point in the relationship. Things have kind of, let's say degraded, but it have kind of gone a little bit of autopilot. And, I miss connecting with you. I miss being intimate with you. I miss, what would it look like for us to try to start moving that direction if that's something you also want to? And be honest about where she wants. And yeah, it's not unusual that like things kind of, life nowadays tends to be very, it kind of turns into like some like autopilot thing. It's just, you don't even realize you're just going through the motions every day, wake up, go to work, come home, watch TV together, go to sleep. That might just need an injection of some kind of variety or fun where, the two of you say like, you know what, we're going to go away for a weekend, somewhere completely brand new with a new experience we've never experienced before, something brand new to do together. The nice guy syndrome thing, that can be, it depends on what the problem of the relationship specifically is. It's like, is there a lack of intimacy? Is there a lack of connection? Is there a lack of like what specifically is going on that is causing the problems there? And to what degree do you want to actually try to build something new? Because as you go through phases of life too, it's like, when you're first dating is different than when you get married, is different than when kids come along, is different than when the kids grow up. And it's like these are all massive life changes. You have to kind of like sit down and softly negotiate what is the next 5 or 10 years going to look like for us now that things are like this, now that things are like that. Maybe for a long time you both were in just child raising mode and you kind of lost connection to each other. But then one day the kids just grow up and move out of the house, and then it's just like, oh shit, it's just you and me. Like, do we even know each other anymore? Okay, maybe we gotta take some time. Like saying, like, we gotta start doing activities again, going out to dinner, go out to go do an activity, and done something to try to just spice up some variety to kind of be like, oh, we lost connection. Let's try and get it back. Have some fun again. Have a new experience together again. One of the easiest ways, I think, is picking an activity you both enjoy that has some degree of emotional volatility to it. Because like emotional volatility tends to be a really good like chemical bonding activity. So it's like we're gonna go skydiving together, or we're gonna go like bungee jumping, or we're gonna go like whitewater raft, whatever crazy activity, something that's gonna be like emotionally stirring for both of you. And that's a really easy way to start. Be like, oh, like that was fun, and I did that with you. Like we connected. That was a cool experience to experience with you. There's even this is a funny one. There was a research study. It's like a Harvard study. It was looking at couples that were going on like I guess like first dates. And what they did was they had couples meet up for the first date. And the first it was literally just like meet, talk, get a vibe for each other, see if there's any chemistry there at all, anything at all. And they would have certain couples that would meet on a bridge. All the couples would meet on a bridge. One bridge was like sturdy and brick and just really rigid and was fine. One bridge was like a rickety wooden bridge. It was like, it's not going to fall, but I'm not sure I feel super safe on this. And then afterwards, they asked the couples, asked the individuals, like, what did you think of that person? Did you feel like there was chemistry there? How did you feel from it? And like the sturdy bridge was like, they were okay. It was interesting. He seems like a nice guy. Seems like a nice girl, whatever. The rickety bridge was like, I kind of felt something. Like it was just like something about this person was kind of vibing. I don't know what it was, but like it basically said like you need to go through it and like an emotionally, I wouldn't say volatile, but emotionally stirring experience together to actually create that sense of bonding. So it could be building something. It could be like, oh, we're going to renovate the house, or we're going to do it together. It could be we're going to start a project. We're going to go volunteer and create an organization. We're going to build a business together. Something that's like emotionally challenging that you do together is a fantastic way to start building connection between two people, especially as life becomes very monotonous and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's one of those big things, isn't it? We have so many responsibilities and so many things stacking up on our plate all the time. And when we come home, we just want to switch off, or we fall into that routine or that habit of just sitting on the couch, switching off, eating dinner maybe, and we don't plan those activities or those opportunities to connect on a deeper level. And that's where the drifting can sort of
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And I think, as blokes, we're great at setting maybe career goals, training goals, other goals in other areas of our life. But then what time do we allocate to our relationship, and what goals do we have
Yeah.
around our relationships? I'm guilty of that, like not setting goals in my relationship or not setting aside date night, especially when kids come along and then you're juggling all these different, balls, trying to keep them all up. And that relationship thing seems to start to drift, and it starts to be harder to, I don't know, find that time, find that space to connect. So I like what you're saying there of like organizing events or booking in events and doing something different and opening up that opportunity for deeper conversation, I suppose, in that way. You touched earlier on like, tools. Like I'm interested to know like what sort of tools, what sort of things are you using with men inside of your framework, maybe to help them create the relationships that they want to create or challenge those relationships in a way that's healthy.
The biggest one is emotional self-regulation when it comes to like things like conflict and communication. A lot of guys don't have the vote. They just were never taught. It's not even their fault. I'm not blaming dudes for this. Like it is amazing how many men in the last 50 to 100 years were never really given much of a guide in terms of their own emotional state, what they're feeling. Yes, most guys nowadays, like, how you feeling? It's either I'm fine, I'm horny, I'm pissed off, I'm tired. That's it. It's like I got four things I can identify. It's like, well, have you ever felt sad? Have you ever felt grief? Have you ever felt frustration? Have you ever felt loneliness? Have you ever felt, like anxiety? And then it's like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine. Totally fine. Like, well, you just something tragic. You just lost your job. Aren't you feeling a little bit like, like grief? Over like, no, it's fine. It's whatever. It's a fucking job. I don't care. Like, or like your parent just passed away. How are you feeling? Like, I'm fine. It's whatever. It happens. Life happens. So whatever it may be. And a lot of times what can happen in a relationship is especially if you're dating if you're with a woman, like she knows something's off, but you don't even know what's happening inside your own system. And you get a lot of guys that just are just emotionally disconnected from themselves. And so going through the process of trying to emotionally identifying emotions and being okay with sitting with those emotions. Men's groups are fantastic for this. You know, a good therapist, a good coach can basically just help you like decompress feelings, start to bridge connections between what you're feeling and why you're feeling it and what's causing you to get riled up. Men with anger issues, men with like they tend to have they have either have a shutdown or they blow up, things like that. Um, Having ways to manage those emotions, especially when it comes to like I said, if you've disconnected in the relationship and you want to reconnect, there might be a little bit of volatility there and from what she's been feeling too. Maybe she's been feeling neglected and X, Y, and Z, and then you got to talk about it, and then she explodes, and you explode, and it just goes back and forth, and the whole thing just turns into fuck it, I'm not going to bother tonight. We'll talk about this next time. Then the next time never happens, and then all of a sudden divorce happens. And it's a question of like being able to stay in contact with somebody through an emotionally difficult time. This is very common. This is something you really ideally would learn growing up in a lot of. There's plenty of books about like how we really screwed us up with recent generations of kids. But a good example of this is like, I was just watching a podcast earlier about this. It's like when you're raising a child, especially when it gets like the toddler years and they get like I want this, I want that, I want all this stuff. That you need to learn how to. They need to learn how. You need to learn how to hold connection with them while maintaining a boundary. So it's like the kid really, really fucking wants ice cream, but you're not going to give them ice cream, and they lose their shit. And what may have happened in the past is like, we'll just put them in the corner and time out. It's like, well, you're almost punishing them for having an impulse they didn't ask for. It's a weird feeling to be like, I didn't choose to have this urge for ice cream, but I don't know what to do about it, and it's screaming at me right now, so I'm screaming at you. But when I scream at you, you tell me to time out. That's not good either. Ideally, what you would do is like write it out with them and like a co-regulation. Like it's kind of like giving a kid a hug and be like, I know you're angry and I know you hate me right now, and you're not getting ice cream, but I still love you. It's like, I know you want to play more video games. You're not going to, but I still love you. It's like staying in connection. Like you've ever seen this in movies? This is so funny when like the loving father will like take the son and punch him in the gut and then immediately give him like a bear hug. Like, I don't want to do this, but you fucking need this right now. But the bear hug is like, I don't want to lose. I want you to know I care about you, but that behavior is not okay, but I still care about you. So it's like, it's confusing when you hold on to these two different things at the same time. So in the case of like communication in a relationship, it's a matter of like, how do I stay in connection with you to say like, this is a problem, but I also don't want you to run away, but I also still love you. It's like, you know, if you're looking at your partner and you're like, you've gained weight and I don't find it attractive, but I still love you, but I don't know how to say it without like pissing you off or whatever, or this thing that you do is bothering me, whatever it may be. And I think a lot of people don't realize you have to practice keeping yourself emotionally grounded when you engage in these difficult conversations, because the conversation needs to happen. But if you let the emotions stir up too hard because you don't have good self-regulation ability, you can't, modulate your breath, modulate your stress in the moment, stay in connection with that, it's just going to turn into like, fuck it, I'm not going to bother, and just run away and shut down. And then it's never going to get resolved. And then resentment builds, and then it just compounds and compounds and compounds. And then depending on the situation, you get affairs, you get infidelity, you get divorce and things like that. And a lot of it is probably resolvable, but you may have gotten to a point in your life where you didn't have the skill set of knowing how to stay, for lack of better words, like conscious when you're going into a conflict. Simple way to think of like conscious versus unconscious is like, you've ever had a moment where you just completely emotionally blew up on somebody, and then like 10 minutes later, you're like, what the hell was I thinking? Oh my God, why did I even do that? Holy shit, it was a huge mistake. That's almost like going emotionally unconscious. Like the monkey part of your brain took over because the emotions were just too intense in the moment. And you haven't had enough time in the emotional gym to learn how to keep that in check while having a difficult conversation. So staying conscious by regulating your emotions and being okay with like having difficult conversation while you're trying to resolve conflict with your partner is paramount to a long-term relationship, because the conflicts are going to happen, but the more you keep sweeping them under the rug, the more they just build and build until it just explodes one day.
I like what you said there. I think, when you touched on like kids and bringing kids up and how we treat our kids and how that sort of shapes their emotions and their belief systems
Tremendously.
around all that sort of stuff. So I've got a 3-year-old daughter at the moment, and it's like she's at that stage where I want, and you're trying to juggle it as best you can with everything. And it's a difficult thing to do, but the impacts that's going to have later on in her life is something that I'm aware of, and it's trying to stay present with her, like you sort of say. But then I'm busy working on that with one thing, and it's like, okay, how am I being able to do that with my partner?
Hmm.
Is another thing as well. How was that showing up for you? So when you rewind back to those relationships that you were in that weren't working so well, were you having these moments of like walking away or being angry? And also on the back of that, like, how do we start? Because I feel that a lot of men are emotionally disconnected, or we've been told to bury our emotions. We've been
Hmm.
told not to cry, not to be sad, just to put that mask on. How do we start tapping into that?
This a lot of it is just you just quite literally practice. The way I think of it is like your brain has a lot of different functions as that, but one of the biggest ones is keeping you safe and emotional safety or other like social cohesion and like the tribe is paramount. So like expressing an emotion that is not welcome here could get you kicked out of the tribe. Don't even bother showing it because you could get kicked out of the tribe. You get kicked out of the tribe, you're dead. Like, so the version of human beings that survived this long is the one that was able to be like, I'll just do what I have to do to make sure I fit in because I can't get kicked out, even if I'm pissed off right now. And so your brain is notoriously good at putting up like psychological defenses to pain you've been hiding. It could be emotions you've been burying, it could be pain you've been hiding. And so working with a good therapist, a good coach, working with a men's group is fantastic, especially if you find a good one that is like, whatever you bring to us, you're not going to be judged. You're not going to be shamed for it. Because what's really ultimately what's happening is your brain is convinced, like, if I let this out, I'm going to lose status. I'm going to lose, credentials. I'm going to lose like my place in the hierarchy. They're going to think less of me, and I could lose my ranking in the group, or I can get kicked out of the group, and that's a death sentence, literally. Like by caveman standards, it is a death sentence to get kicked out of the group, let alone lose status. But at the same time, the only way to really to practice these feelings is by being in proximity to somebody that doesn't judge you for feeling it. So that's what I think was great about good men's groups, are like the ones where you're like, yeah, like, if you're really feeling emotionally shot, you want to cry, like, go for it. We'll sit here and be with you while you go through it. And it's kind of like it's like an extension of it's kind of an extension of the parent-child relationship. Like when little babies are emotionally riled up, they start crying. What do? You hold them because you're using your body as like an anchor to like calm them down while they're riding that emotional wave out. We lose that when we become adults. Ideally, you kind of graduate. You'd be like, get to a long relationship with a partner, if you get married, or whatever it may be. But a lot of men historically, we would have used that like in the hunting parties or like the men's groups back in the day. Like, you had a problem, you brought it to the other men, and like, whatever you were going through, like you digested your emotions in presence of other men that respected you and weren't going to judge you for feeling it. We've totally lost that nowadays, and men's groups are coming back in droves, which is great. But that is one of the best places to practice that is just to be like sitting with a difficult emotion in the presence of people that are not going to judge you, because you need to know that you're feeling safe. You need to know you're not going to feel judged or criticized for feeling something you didn't choose to feel. You don't choose feelings. You don't get to choose them. But being in proximity to somebody who's just like, whatever it is you're feeling, I'll be the person to just like be present with you while you go through it, to convince your brain, convince your subconscious that you're not under attack, you're not going to lose status, you're not going to be judged, you're not going to be shamed, you're not going to be criticized. It's just a process that has to complete itself, has to finish itself out, whatever it may be. We've got these guys who like they'll be holding on to emotions and shame for 20, 30, 40 years. And it may be a long, and then it still echoes and shows up in their relationship, shows up in their behavior and their posturing and their emotional temperament. And it's not until they finally get into the presence of some dudes that are just like, yeah, it's like, we're going to respect you the same way as we did after you go through this, whatever it is you need to get off your chest, whatever it may be. It's the same thing as that, like that little baby just like crying and need someone to hold them. And it sounds like a lot of guys hear that and they're like, I'm not a fucking baby. I don't need to cry. But it's all these emotions are straight up natural biological processes that evolution created for us that have a particular sequence they have to go through. So it's like, I like to refer to as emotional constipation. Like a lot of guys are emotionally constipated. It's like when you eat food, you want it to go into your mouth, go down to your stomach, get digested, go to your intestines, get absorbed. Whatever doesn't, it gets pooped out. That's the whole start to finish. When something emotionally taxing happens, you feel the emotion, your body expresses it in some way. You're angry, you're sad, whatever. Your brain goes through the process, you get out of your system, you feel better afterwards. What happens when like it gets in there and just gets stuck?
Mm.
If you get constipated for long enough, you start having health problems. You get emotionally constipated for long enough, you start having actually health problems too. High blood pressure, heart conditions, high anxieties. Plenty of guys that have like heart attacks early in life because of just emotional stress they've kept bottled up for too long. So yeah, practicing it by finding spaces where you can just let your guard down, whatever it is you're dealing with, and let your body process that feeling at its own pace to just get out of your system and then just move on. And then from there, take those experiences and say, go back to your relationship and say, cool, now that I'm feeling better, I'm more grounded, I know how to navigate these emotions. They're out of my system. They're not going to flare up in the middle of a conflict having with you. Now let's talk about what's going on in your relationship.
Yeah, well said, mate. I love that emotional constipation. I think I'll steal that one off you and use that because that's it's very, very well said.
Yeah.
I see it all the time. Like a lot of guys in their relationships, they put so much into their relationship. Like they sacrifice a lot and they're showing up as the best partner, as the best dad as they can. But in that process, maybe they've been disconnected from their mates and disconnected from the men around them. So they're lacking that conversation. They're lacking that ability just to be able to talk to other men. And I think that leads to partly that emotional constipation you're talking about. It all builds up. They feel like they can't talk to their partner about it. There's nowhere that they can release that.
Yep.
I think men in general, therapy, no, I don't need therapy. Men's group, I don't need men's group. Like we just put up that barrier that we don't need that we can fix ourselves, or that I've got this, I'll figure it out. Did you go through therapy or did you go through a men's group in part of
I
your
went through
healing
both.
process? And what made you step into that? Like, why did you decide that this is going to be the best thing for me?
I did therapy on and off for years since I was like a teenager into adulthood here and there. And what I've come to see with traditional therapy, and I had the guy meant well. I think he was a part of, he was like a family therapist. He worked with my family with a number of things we dealt with. I think he was just trained for, I like to refer to it as like bomb containment rather than bomb not diffuse, like the bomb diffusal instead of bomb containment. Like a diffusal is like, well, don't feel that way. Just don't think, like push it down, push it down, push it down. Containing just, but versus just like, okay, controlled explosions is really what you're looking for. It's like when you have guys who have a lot of anger, a lot of shame, a lot of resentment, like that fucking ex-wife of mine, and the boss is a piece of shit, and I hate my dad, and I hate my mom, whatever it may be. It's like you can't go, well, just don't think like no, like you need to get that out. But like we need to do it in a space that's not going to also tear down your house and burn everything in the process. So that's what a good therapist and a good coach does. Essentially says like that emotion needs to just get expressed. It needs to finish the digestive, like almost like digesting emotions. That's the way I think of it. You need to finish digesting your food. You need to finish digesting your emotions. And so what I got a lot of was like containment, like the kind of like that pushing down. Well, not push it down, but like think of it this way. Think of it this way. Think of it this way. Like logic and emotion is two different circuits in your brain. Like every guy loves to jump in like, well, I can explain why this is okay because like, you can explain as much as you want, but you felt a particular way. Regardless of whether you wanted to, you felt a particular way, and that needs to finish its sequence, and you haven't let it. And when finally, I actually went back to therapy after when the problem started in the relationship, and I was like, "Is it me? Am I?" She was going to see a therapist too. Like, is it me? Do I have some problems? Do I have some bombs like sitting in the back of my mind that's going to detonate sometime in the future too? Because I keep finding the same person. And then finally, when I started looking into like attachment theory and I'm a Mr. Nice Guy and all this stuff, I ended up finding a pretty competent men's coach, started doing that. And I went to a men's group and it was like, he basically said like, yeah, you're like, you have full permission to be as angry at your parents as you want to right now. You have full permission to be as sad as you want to about that fucked up thing that happened to you as a kid. And I just like let it all out. And I was like, holy shit, I feel better than I felt in 20 years. This is totally different. Because again, it's like finishing that emotional loop, that process of digesting and just shitting out whatever needs to get shit out. It's quite literally what it is. So therapy will probably catch up in time, but a lot of it, the problem with it is a lot of the profession is very female dominated. And even current models nowadays are much more around like, how can we keep you stuck in the loop for longer? It's like, we just keep you going, like, we'll keep you coming back week after week after week after week after week. Really good therapy should have an end date. Good coaching should have an end date in mind of whatever problem you're trying to deal with. So it's like if you have problems with simple example might be like a guy who is just, struggles with relationships. He doesn't know how to talk to women. He gets super nervous and anxious. And therapy might say like, oh, well, let's talk about where that came from. So, yeah, we could, but that doesn't change the fact that you need to then go out and practice it and do the thing, no matter how scary it is, and find ways to chunk it down small enough that your body can handle it without you going unconscious, without you freaking out and just going like totally like, you're not like thousand yards, sorry, like dissociating. You're not even there. I found a lot more effectiveness through coaching because it was a mixture of like a little bit of therapy mixed with like, okay, we're going to talk about this shit. I'm not going to let you hide that emotion I know you're holding in there. And those guys are notorious for those. Just like I wasn't there, but I have the guy that I worked with. He does men's retreats, and he was telling me about this one guy who came to one of the men's retreats, and he's like, "I know you do that Jedi mind shit, and I don't want the mind trick shit. I don't want you to do it to me, but I also know I really need it."
Mm.
And for him, whatever the problem, it was like something, he had anger towards his dad, anger towards his mom, sadness towards his childhood, whatever it may be. And it's like, they're really good about basically saying like, I can spot it. I'm not going to let you run away from it. You're going to sit here with me and get as much of it as you can out. And then afterwards, I'm going to give you some things to start working on, make sure these behaviors don't keep repeating themselves. And ideally, after enough time, however long it may be, usually it depends on the problem, you start to change the behavior so they don't keep repeating. Like I have a very good sense of, emotional empathy. I'm very good, like emotionally attuned to people. It's kind of something I probably picked up from the childhood that I had to live through, of being very emotionally attuned to my mom to make sure like if she was about to just go off, I was just aware of it before she even knew it. I was very aware of it. But now I don't go about trying to fix people's problems when they come to me with them. I'm not like, oh, I'm going to help you. It's like, no. If you have a problem, you can come to me and talk to me about it, and I will give you advice as to what you can do. But if you don't do it, that's your choice, not my problem. Big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, nice one. I like it. I think humans, like we're told that humans seek out pleasure. Like we seek out sugar, we seek out sex, we seek out this sense of pleasure. But I was reading something the other day and it was saying actually humans are trying to avoid discomfort. It's not that we seek out pleasure, but we don't like to be challenged by discomfort. We like to be comfortable. And anything that's going to challenge us or put us in that state of dis-ease or discomfort, we try to avoid. So when big challenges come up, it's like we're standing at the base of Everest and we're looking at the top of the mountain and thinking, fuck, that's a long way to go. It's easy for me just to stay comfortable. I'm going to stay at the bottom of the hill. And we fall into that trap. So I'm curious, like for you, stepping into therapy or stepping into men's groups and obviously facing those emotions or sitting in that uncomfortable or that discomfort and working your way through it, do you remember a particular one of those that you'd share with us? And can you talk about maybe the transformation that happened after you sat in that discomfort and then you went about, implementing the steps to, fix or challenge yourself to get beyond that?
I think there was two moments I could think of. It was just two different coaches in the same group of guys that worked together. One was like, he basically made a point to say, in a nutshell, the other person, it was my ex-girlfriend, like she has to want to be a part of this too. She actually was in therapy. And I remember, so it was funny, this I'll tie back into this whole story. She, at some point, she wanted to break it off with me the first time, but I kind of called her bluff. She was like, I'm not good enough for you. We need to break up. You deserve better. And I was just like, this doesn't sound like you're unhappy. It sounds like you're scared. It sounds very different feeling. It's like, not something I did wrong, something you did wrong. It's like, you're genuinely scared because you're in the presence of a man that is treating you better than you've ever been treated, even better than your own father. So her parents were divorced and they got divorced at a very young age, single mom, a lot of stress in the childhood. And I kind of called her bluff the first time. And even her, I remember she went back to her therapist and I came to her and said, like, out of curiosity, what did your therapist say? And she said, her therapist said, you have a pattern of pushing people away in your life. And this actually this could be something that echoes a lot of the guys listening to this podcast. You have a pattern of avoidant men, pushing people away in your life. And then when you finally succeed in pushing them away, you tell yourself you're not worthy of being with somebody. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're afraid of being connected to somebody. So you push them away. And when they leave you, you tell yourself, yeah, you're not worthy of love. Look, they just left you, even though you were the one that did it. And then so like, it was like 3 4 months later, she kind of pulled the "we got to break up" card again, and this time she basically said like, I literally, I can't do this, I can't do this." And I went to coaching, and I was like, what do I do? Holy shit, how do I fix her? And she's like, you don't fix her, you can't. You fix you, you don't fix her. But ultimately, she has to make the decision that she wants to be in this relationship to work through these problems with you. There's a good quote in this space I've heard. It's like, we're wounded in relationship and we're healed in relationship. One of the best ways to fix these nervous system issues is by being in a long-term relationship with somebody and just writing out the discomfort as it comes up. So it's like, if you're in my case, it's like, if you put a woman in front of me who was like well-rounded, came from a great family, parents are still married, and they're happy, and they have grandparents, and everyone has big family Thanksgiving, everyone's laughing, having a good time, and there's not too many problems, I'd be freaking the fuck out. Because I've never been with somebody like that. The one time I was with somebody like that, all the feelings and thoughts in my head was like, this isn't going to work. This is not for me. She's not, I don't know if I want this. Looking back, I realized it was my brain saying like, this is not normal. I have never experienced this to this level, to this depth before.
Mm.
And so I essentially had to like say like, oh, okay, I had to like give her the permission. And if she chooses not to, I had to just walk away, which is exactly what I did. After it took me about like 4 or 5 months later of like hoping and praying maybe she'll come back around, sending her YouTube videos of different podcasts, and there's tons of content out there. But ultimately, you can't get somebody else to do something they don't want to do. They're only ever going to decide to do it themselves. That was painful, but it ended up kind of giving me a lot, taking the burden off my chest of like, oh, it's not my responsibility to fix this person, and because I couldn't fix her doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. Just was never my job. And that goes back to my mom too, as well. Same exact thing as like you not being able to fix your mom. It was never your responsibility to fix her in the first place. The other one I think was some frustration I had with my father. And I went to this men's group thing, and I basically kind of opened up about it. And it was a frustration that I had from being emotionally disconnected from him. And he's always like a lot of older generation, a lot of men from the older generations, a lot of men today who have parents from like baby boomers, 1940s, 1950s, and plus, they can relate to this. Where like their fathers were just not emotionally there. Like they worked hard, they paid the bills, but they didn't really like connect. They didn't really like have that kind of one-on-one cut. They never saw their dads cry. They never saw their dads besides just anger and maybe like having joy, but it was nothing much in between. And like a lot of the life lessons along the way, like your first girlfriend or your first crush or how to do your taxes, like these things just didn't get taught because most of the dads back in the day was like, my job is just work, push my feelings down, and make sure the house doesn't explode. That's all my job is. And I definitely had like a lot of memories pop up from emotional disconnection with them. For me, it was like, it was when I did Little League baseball, and it sounds stupid, but to me, it was a recurring theme throughout my childhood. I realized in the moment in that session, I realized this is a recurring theme. I was the worst in Little League baseball. I was terrible. I was paranoid to just swing the bat because it wasn't like I was bad at it. I was so terrified of looking stupid by missing that I wouldn't even swing. I'd rather just walk. And my dad would joke, and he's like, "Yeah, I feel like my son leads the league in like balls and walks. Doesn't even swing. Doesn't even try." And there was a time when we were driving back from, I must have been like 9 years old. I was driving back, and he told me this story. I didn't even remember it until you reminded me of it. We were driving back from a game or something like that. I was a bit moody because I felt like an idiot again because I didn't swing at all, and I missed, and all my friends are getting home runs, and I'm over here just afraid to try. And I said something to him like, I missed on purpose because I wanted to make myself look stupid. Like I was trying to normalize how I was feeling. And he said, "Well, congratulations, you succeeded." And I was thinking like, that is not what I needed to hear in that moment at all. Like in that moment, I was just dealing with a ton of embarrassment and shame and anxiety. I didn't know how to navigate it. And he just kind of like said, "Cool, we're just going to just shit on top of that too." We talked about it since then. We've kind of like I told him years later, like that actually really fucking hurt. It really fucking hurt here as a 9-year-old. Even I'm 36 now. And like that moment was like, that was a gut punch I did not need. But he also didn't really know like how to navigate those emotions himself. Because if you rewind the clock even further, he actually lost his dad when he was very young. And so like he was just repeating patterns he knew. And you go back far enough from a lot of these guys, like family lineages, you see like these patterns have repeated several times over and over and over again. And ultimately, for me, it became a question of like, do I want to repeat this generational trauma or do I actually want to fix it? If I have kids of my own, I'm single right now. ladies, give me a call. But if I ever have any kids in the future, like, what do I want to do to make sure it doesn't repeat itself? As you you
Mhm,
hear with guys who say like, I don't want my kids to go through what I went through. And
mhm,
there's a variation of that where it's like you don't want to over coddle your kids. You also don't want to like neglect them regardless. And there's a fine line, like we said before, of like I'm gonna beat the crap out of them to toughen them up, but I'm also gonna make sure they know they're loved. And we tend a lot of times we there's like a bifurcation that'll happen sometimes where like if mom is in charge, it's nothing but love but no challenges. Or if dad is in charge, it's challenges but not enough love. And so you get these guys who are just like they're afraid of healthy risk. They're afraid of stepping out of their comfort zone. They're afraid of doing things like that. Like, I know I should be doing more. I know I'm capable of more. I know I could be doing more at my job. I could be making more money. I could like go out and do. I just why do I still keep? And again, it's like your own subconscious patterns because you just didn't get that training growing up. Or you get the guys who are like, I am nothing but what I produce. I am only like a paycheck. I work my ass off. That's it. And then when someone comes along and says like, I love you, like, whoa, no, 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 stay over there. I'm just gonna keep working now and learning to figure out like where it's a father wound, it's a mother wound, like where the wound actually come from and what needs to be addressed to try to like fix the problem. Some guys, it's like, I need you to step out of your comfort zone more often to stretch your nervous system. Some guys, it's like, I need you to take a chill pill and be present when your wife says she loves you and let it just sink in, even if it makes you cry, whatever it may be.
Avoidance is the word that comes to mind when I hear
Oh,
you
goodness.
talking
Yeah.
about what you're talking about now. And I'm guilty of it too. And it took me a long time to sort of figure that out. And for me, it was in training, like because I'm working in health and fitness and I'm a personal trainer, and training to me is my escape. It's a place where I feel successful. I can go to the gym and I can achieve, new PBs or new results, or it's a place where I can just go and tick the box, tick, 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 and it feels great. I'm safe there. And I think some guys have that in work. We go to work and that we can climb the corporate ladder or we can achieve something at work, and we're doing stuff where emails, whatever it is, that to-do list just gets done and we feel like, oh, success, I've achieved something there.
mhm.
So we like to hide in these areas or these spaces that give us that sense. But when we turn around, that discomfort is there, or that the places maybe where we're not being successful, and we might just end up doom scrolling. We might end up watching porn. There's a whole heap of other distractions or avoidance that comes in. Can we speak about that just a little bit? How do we see where our avoidance is, and what sort of tools do you have to help men deal with those avoidance
It
strategies that
depends
come
on,
up?
yeah, avoidance is usually the way I heard it worded is a little bit differently. It's like you're avoiding contact. It's not that you're an avoidant, you're anxious, you're avoidant in contact, you're anxious about contact. And I mean, it'll show up depending from person to person. It might be like most often guys tend to step into the work when a bomb is about to go off, even though the clock's been ticking for years now. And they're just like, what is that ticking sound? Whatever, I'm just gonna go back to work. And then finally one day they open the door and they see like a bomb's about to go off, has 5 seconds left. You're like, oh shit, I gotta learn how to defuse it right now. And it's like, you got 5 seconds to defuse this shit. Hopefully you can pull it off in time. But it's usually in the case of like wife is threatening divorce, wife is is infidelity, cheating, just not happy, sex is drying up, whatever it may be. And it takes some practice. It takes some time to figure out, like, because every guy's different. For my case, there's also another style referred to as like disorganized, and it's a mixture of the two. So, like, I noticed myself when I was in the presence of women who were like, I know what I want. I know how to get it. I want to get there. I like you. I'm cool with you. You fit well into my family. Let's go. I would run away. I was the avoidant one. When I found the women who were like, I'm not really sure. Do I want to get married? Do I want to have kids? I'm really not. I'd be like, oh, perfect. We're going to get along fucking great. This is going to be awesome. I can fix you. Yeah, this is amazing. And it varies from person, but in the case of the avoidant thing, your brain has learned to substitute dopamine seeking activities over oxytocin producing and vasopressin producing activities. Like oxytocin, very commonly, like the love hormone, it's bonding, it's hugging, kissing, romantic. It's eye contact is a big one. If you're like looking at someone like intimately, you're getting oxytocin hits. If you look at a baby and the baby starts smiling and giggling, they're getting oxytocin hits. It's giving you oxytocin hits. That's causing you two to bond. Sex is a big one for women. Childbirth, lactation, and breastfeeding. Tons of oxytocin bonding. But what'll happen is, as I said before, like my last girlfriend, it was like, and she's just one example, but that exact same thing has happened number of times with me and plenty of other people out there, is that the first 6 to 9 months or so is mostly dopamine. It's mostly just it's novel, it's new, it's exciting. You don't really know what's going to happen, and eventually you hit like the honeymoon phase wears off. And ideally, what will happen is those the dopamine kicks get replaced with vasopressin and oxytocin. It's like you're doing difficult things together, and you're bonding through hugs, kisses. I love you. I'm here for you. Emotional bonding. You go through a rough time. One person's crying. They're being present for them. In her case, or in most cases like this, what will happen is when somebody comes along and says like, "I love you," it's just like, "Oh, I feel like I'm gonna throw up." Like, no, no, no. That's something was my body just said no. That's not. I don't like hugs. I don't like kisses. I don't like being cuddled. It's like, I don't know what it is. And you just can literally feel like a physiological disgust almost. Like your body's saying, back the fuck up. This is not normal. And realistically, let's say normal by your own lived experience. And you heard the stories of like people were like, oh, you weren't hugged enough when you were a kid. You didn't get enough kisses from mom and dad when you were a kid. That's why you're fucked. Like, yeah, literally is. Like every time when you were growing up, at some point, something emotionally difficult hit, something that was bigger than you could handle hit you. You got upset, you started crying, you got angry. Ideally, there's a parent nearby that's supposed to be like, I'm going to be the emotional grounding for you while you ride this out. And if you don't get that repeatedly growing up, eventually you say, okay, I can't rely on anybody. I can't trust anybody. I'm not able to get close to anybody because I've never gotten it before. You don't get the oxytocin hits you need to train your nervous system that there will be somebody there for you. And ideally, you grow up and then like that the love you have for your parents kind of like transmutes into the love you have for a partner. But if you had a toxic relationship with your parents, you're gonna repeat the exact same relationship with your partner. So step one, depending on if the guy is like very avoidant, is to start just practicing being like open and vulnerable with people around you. If you've got close friends and family who care about you, who love you, just practicing like it could even if you're married, you have like a partner, she wants to like cuddle. I had a woman I worked with for massage therapy. She she had like a bingo card full of messed up sexual things that happened to her growing up, like sexual abuse, violence. She was trafficked, like crazy shit she went through. But she ended up getting married. She has a husband. And I remember talking to her. We would have like she'd tell me all the honest conversations about what's going on with her life. And one thing she said was interesting was she's like, I really, really enjoy like aggressive, violent, rough sex. But when he's like soft and cuddly and nurturing, I want to fucking vomit. It literally disgusts me. It's gross beyond belief. I can't even. She was like it shivers. Like it's so gross. And I had to tell her like that's kind of part of your healing process. Like because what has happened to you growing up was not normal. Like your sexual experiences you experienced from what you went through was not normal, but your body's trying to normalize it by repeating it. But clearly it's not going to lead to like long-term healthy relationship. So when your husband like wants to just say like I want to just cuddle you, I want to do like slow, softer, caressing kind of sex, your goal is to try to just stay present through it for as long as you can, and then maybe take breaks throughout. So it might be like cuddling makes me want to throw up. Just do it for 2 minutes. Set a timer, lie down, spoon each other. 2 minutes. If you feel like you got to get up, you get up and you walk away. Just take some deep breaths, calm yourself down, come back to it, and then you keep extending. It's almost like a workout. It's an emotional workout. Because what's happening in those moments is you're getting hits of the hormones you didn't get growing up, and your brain has to now start adjusting and adapting to feeling it. So, like, whatever the activity may be, I want you to sit down and make eye contact for, like 30 seconds. I want you to, like, hold hands in public. I want you to, like, cuddle. Like, we're going to have more foreplay leading up to sex, whatever it may be. And like when the urge to run away hits you, just sit down, close your eyes, take some deep breaths, put your hand over your heart, let the person just like put their hand on your shoulders and stay in contact. There's a simple one people can do. It's like if you're having, it's like co-regulation exercise where basically you can, like a man and woman, you sit down together facing each other. You can put like forehead to forehead. You put your hands on her back where her lungs are, and she puts her hands on your back, and you just breathe in sync. Like you breathe at the same pace. Ideally, the guy matches her pace because his lungs are bigger, so she's gonna like outbreathe her dramatically. But like follow her pace. And like forehead's connected, hands connected, you feel her body, she feels your body, your nervous systems will just start to sync up. And you'll just be kind of like on the same wavelength. And it's a physical contact, it's oxytocin bonding, and just it's calming yourself down while you're in presence and contact with somebody. Little things like that. But it's a matter of figuring out like where is the actual problem. I can't stand like kissing, can't stand hugging. sex feels weird. I don't like being intimate. Like, okay, we're going to take that activity. We're going to chop it up and break it small and do like 30 seconds at a time. And just then a minute, then a minute and a half, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And little things you start stacking on top of each other within your range of tolerance. You can't go 0 to 100. It might just be like, we're going to do like 10%, then 15, then 20, then 30. And then once a day, I want you to tell her you love her. And then once a day, I want you to like think of something nice that you like about her. And it's going to make you feel gross at first, but then after a while, it's going to become normalized. And then you're going to get better bonding and you're going to work through those childhood demons that have been holding you back all these years.
Awesome. It's that discomfort thing. It's standing at the bottom of Everest and thinking you're going to make it to the peak in one day. That's not going to happen, but it is just climbing it a little bit at the time and, working in that direction that you want to go. I like the way you put the science stuff behind it. You talk about the different hormones there that are being released, the honeymoon period, the dopamine, and then, how we can sort of step into that, which is really, really powerful. It comes to the idea of like, we're never really given the playbook of like how to be a dad or how to be a partner or how, where's the rules or where's the instructions? Because guys love that sort of stuff, but it is so much about how we got brought up. It is the relationship we had with our parents, the relationship maybe we had at younger years with the people around us, the environment we were in that dictates the belief systems as we get older. And to be able to change those belief systems, I think a lot of it's looking internal, isn't it? Awareness and having what it is, but also being willing to, you talk about going to the gym. If I want to get stronger, I go to the gym, I do repetitions, I lift a heavier weight. I don't start with the biggest weight. I've got to start small and build up.
Yeah.
But it's starting small with those things that maybe feel uncomfortable in short bursts and then gradually trying to build the intensity or add more to it.
Yeah, it's emotional weightlifting, quite literally.
Yeah, emotional weightlifting. Something a lot more guys need to practice. Yeah. Michael, is there anything we haven't spoken about that you think we need to talk about today?
I was just doing, I think I mentioned I did like a video earlier. I think there's a lot of misconceptions around where needs in a relationship come from and how they tend to get outsourced. And I think I've seen this a lot with people who, especially guys, especially nowadays, who are dealing with like things like pornography addiction. Understanding where it comes from, why it happens, and how there's a whole like 2-hour discussion to be had in the context of men and women understanding each other's perception of reality, because it is wildly different. Not dramatically, but there's enough differences that it causes a lot of friction. And a lot of women don't understand like how deeply seated the need for sexual access is for men, how much of it is like, it's part of our calming systems, part of our relationship, part of our bonding sequence, and how it tends to get outsourced to like things like pornography. But I see, if I ever go online, I see there's so much freaking vitriol in some of these comment threads and posts and whatnot of people just getting mad at they're mad at women being women and men being men. And it's like somehow we forgot about it in the last, I don't know, 100 years or so, like how we just operate differently, how we have different views of the world. But if there's anything, I think it's prudent that each sex learns about the opposite sex, like personal biological agendas and their perception of the world, and how you can come together to create a cohesive relationship. But it makes more sense to understand like, why are women so emotionally needy? Why are men so freaking horny? Like, why this must be a bad thing. If we could just fix them. I had a woman I did a podcast with, and she was like, I can't remember the exact wording. I have to go back and find it. But it was like, women looked at men as emotionally illiterate, hairy apes, and men looked at women as like, just emotionally erratic, like lesser men, whatever it was, not realizing like we just have different ways of functioning. But I think in terms of relationships, it's like, if you can spend some time to understand like, what is the significance of her having an emotional safety? What does emotional safety mean to her? Why is sex so important to him? What would it take for you two to be in a dynamic where these things are getting met as a function of the relationship, like autopilot? Because if there's a relationship that's on autopilot that is just like they're compounding in the right direction, because they basically early on said like, what does a guy need? I need, lots of sex and, respect. Okay, cool. How can we do that? We need to create an environment where her libido is going to be stirred more often naturally by making sure there's not friction in front of it. What does she need? She needs lots of affirmation and, or like cuddles. What does that look like? Oh, she just wants to get flowers once a week, and then like take her out on like on a nice date once in a while. There's a good podcasting couple out there, Next Level University. You've heard of them? It's two guys that do it, and one of the guys, him and his girlfriend, run another podcast, and I actually talked to both of them, and I remember her saying something. She's like, for me, a big thing is like surprises. She's like, I fucking love surprises, but it could be anything from like, surprise me for we're going on a walk tonight. Surprise me for like we're going to like a new restaurant we've never been to before. Surprise me with like, we're going to the movies this weekend. I wasn't, whatever it is, just surprise me. And he's like, I've got that shit on lockdown. And it makes her so freaking happy. And she's happy. We do lots of fun stuff as a result of it. And I'm happy. So and then we like early on, we negotiated like, what does happiness look like for you, man and women? And then how can we integrate this into the relationship in a way that is not constantly having to reinvent the wheel just to get what we want and need. That was
I
a
like
lot,
that.
but
That was a lot.
I think understanding each other is just the crux of it. It's just like, don't get mad at women for having a different view of reality. Don't get mad at men for having a different view of reality. Like, understand each other, and you will go 10 times further in terms of relationship cohesion and happiness.
It's having that communication, like being able to talk to each other and figure out what it is, not just to make the assumption that we know what our partner wants and that everything's okay, but to actually slow down and create that space and that time to actually ask those powerful questions, and figure that out so that obviously you can build deeper connection and
the
a
mind
deeper
reading
relationship.
fallacy. Jesus, that's such a huge problem nowadays. But men do it too. If in fairness, like men, like the number of Mr. Nice Guy, covert contracts, things like that. It's like, I feel like I shouldn't have to ask for this, and it's like, okay, can they read your mind? Like, are you psychic? Are they psychic? Like, probably not. But yeah, the mind reading fallacy, and then just adult communication and being okay with like understanding that they're different, and they're always going to be a little different, and their perception of the world is going to be a little bit different. Just earlier on Facebook, I don't know what it was. It was some woman ranting about childcare. They have a little child, and like the husband doesn't handle it. And like all the comments were just like vitriol. But there's one particular comment made me laugh. It's just like, almost like, we need to normalize men spending more time with the kids, and then once they have more time with the kids, then they won't be as horny because they'll understand like that, like how stressful it's being with the kids, and they'll be too tired to want to have sex, and it'll just solve all the problems. Every person was like, you have no fucking clue how men work. You have no fucking clue what you're talking about. Because like a lot of times the problem is the mismatch is like, men use sex to calm down, but women don't want sex unless they're calm. So like, he's stressed, he wants it. She's stressed, she doesn't want it. And it's like, but understand like, okay, there's a reason why he does it. Like that's his body. That's like what's that? Like, women need to feel loved to have sex. Men need to have sex to feel loved. And just, again, having that kind of open negotiation of like, what does that look like for us? Like, what does, like, for her, it might be like, it would mean the world to me if you just do the dishes and make sure the kids are good and like take the trash out every day without me having to ask you. And then you start taking those things over play. All of a sudden she's like, oh my God, I'm relaxed. Oh my God, you're the sexiest man alive. Holy crap. Or for her, it's like, I don't understand why she wants fucking flowers, but it just makes her happy. I guess, so I just buy it, whatever. Why does she want surprises all the time? I don't know. That's just what she needs. And it works. Just go with it.
Yeah. Sometimes the simplest things, mate, but not making the assumptions and having a good awareness of what your partner wants. So powerful.
Self-awareness is a big one too. It's like, you have to figure out what you want, and then figure out what you want, and then learn how to ask for it, and be okay with not getting it from that person, and saying, maybe I need to find somebody else who actually would give it to me in a healthy way.
Yeah, I think that's another big thing, isn't it? A lot of men don't have clarity about what they want in their relationship. And again, it comes back to that autopilot, like things are okay. We've got a family, we've got a kid, we own a house, we've got a nice car, everything's going okay, but yet they're not getting exactly what they want in that relationship. And maybe they haven't stopped to think about, well, what is the relationship that you do want? And then it's, I suppose, having the courage to be able to have that conversation with your partner, bringing it up, being a bit vulnerable and allowing them to be vulnerable too, back the other way.
There was something I just saw earlier of one of the podcasts. It was like the 10 seconds of a sweaty conversation. And it's like, sometimes it's just conversations you really don't want to have, but it's not because you don't want to have them. It's because like, whatever happens through second 1 through 10, you're actually worried about what's going to happen from like a second 11 onwards. And very often it's like, if I ask for this and I don't get it, then what? So you don't even bother asking in the first place. The reality is, like, if it's bothering you, it's going to continue bothering you. And you can try to numb it out and push it down and suppress it and act like it's not there. It's just going to sit in the back of your mind until it finally comes out, explodes one day. And it will eventually win out with time. Eventually, you will. The things you're putting in place to try to push it down, it's like a beach ball. Like, the harder you push it down, the harder it's going to pop up one day out of the water. And so, yeah, learning to basically be like, ask for something, be okay with the outcome, and saying, all right, like, maybe this is just not the relationship we need. Maybe I'm the person you're the person for me, but not changing dramatically and drastically changing who you are to make it fit.
Mm.
You can
Yeah,
pretend
I
to be
like
like
it.
you're a person who doesn't like certain things, and like, if you want it and like it, it's gonna keep popping up. This is oftentimes where affairs come from, where like infidelity comes from. It's just like unmet needs in relationships are being sought out outside the relationship.
Mm. Michael, it's been awesome to chat to you, mate. And there's so much wealth in everything you said. I can see that you've obviously got a lot of passion for the work that you do. You've been through the challenge yourself. I'm
Hmm.
sure you're still learning a lot as you go through it. And I like the science-backed approach that you're using here to try and explain that. So thank you for jumping on the podcast. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you,
If more
man.
men want to find out what you do and reach out to you or work with you, where can they go?
You can go to adaptivemen.com. I also have a YouTube channel, do a podcast weekly. And if you want to shoot me an email, any questions and inquiries, info@adaptivemen.com.
Awesome, Michael. We will have to connect again in the future, mate. And I'm sure we could talk about a lot more things in a lot more
Yeah.
detail, but I greatly appreciate your time today.
Appreciate you too, man. Thank you.
What I love about conversations like this is that they remind us of something most men forget. Nothing changes until we're willing to look inwards. Whether it's the emotional constipation Michael talked about, the relationship patterns we keep repeating, or the avoidance that quietly erodes our connection. Every man reaches a point in midlife where he has to choose. Do I keep running the old script, or do I start rewriting it? And you don't have to do that alone. If this episode hits something inside of you, if you've recognized yourself in any of these patterns, I want to invite you into the Midlife Mavericks Brotherhood, a community of men doing this work together. The link is in the show notes. Michael, thank you for bringing so much depth, honesty, and science into this conversation. And for everyone listening, take a moment today to check in with yourself. What emotions have you been holding in? What conversations have you been avoiding? What patterns are asking to be broken? You're not stuck, you're just in transition. And the work you do next will define the man you become. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.